A mother writes to me and says, my daughter Ada came home from school in a bad mood, and it just kept getting worse. And after dinner, it was worse yet. Now, for everybody who's listening, this discussion we're going to have about what Mom just said will work for any kid, boy or girl, from about ages 8 to 18. That's most of your kids. If yours are younger than that, it still works because, you know what? Barring your poisoning them, the child will very likely get to be that age. So it applies to pretty much all kids. The mother said, come to think of it, she's been more volatile and edgy the last couple of days. Well, good for you that you noticed. You can see what's been happening now that you, to use your words, think of it. And this is what we must all do as parents. Rarely does a child just suddenly explode or display serious attitude. No, it's been building for hours, days, often years, and we just haven't noticed. They've given us dozens of clues, maybe hundreds, but we didn't pay attention. Why? We prefer not to deal with difficult attitudes, which is understandable. Who wants to teach a child who's being resistant, withdrawn, and snotty? It's hard, but if we really want to be parents, real parents, we have to do what this mother did. We have to, quote, come to think of it, end quote. We have to be more aware and not let things just slide. The mother says, I have pointed out her mood to her a couple of times, but I think maybe it wasn't enough. Clearly not, or she wouldn't be still doing it. Now, when I say clearly you didn't do enough, I'm giving you information. I am not criticizing you. I mean, listen to my tone of voice. I'm just going, obviously you didn't do enough. You did see her mood coming. You saw little flashes of it. You pointed it out a couple of times, and that's actually pretty impressive. And again, this is just good information. It's not praise. And you did point it out a few times. I'd bet anything that if you'd really been paying attention, you could have pointed out little moments of attitude dozens of times in that period. Again, not criticism, just information. So why do I point this out to you? So you can be more aware of her. Keep your eyes open. That's all. Not examine her, interrogate her. Just pay more attention to the supposedly little things, the little tones of voice, facial expressions, sharp remarks, all that stuff that just flies around us as parents so prolifically that we just tune it out as background noise. I was once standing in my driveway with a friend, and he finally said, how do you talk out here? And I said, I don't know what you mean. And he said, I can hardly talk or hear you because of that. And he pointed just sort of outward. So I stopped and I listened. And, you know, he was right. The noise was really loud. The noise of in Georgia in the summertime of katydids. The noise you hear at night is katydids, and in the daytime it's cicadas. But the noise of the katydids rubbing their little limbs together was nearly deafening. Until he pointed out, I couldn't even hear it because I had just tuned it out. My brain just took that frequency and that noise and just went, whew. Electronic filters can do that too. We do that as parents. We tune out the background noise of the frequent fear, anger, resentment, victimhood, attitude. We don't want to hear it or see it, but we have to pay attention to the background noise and put it in the forefront so that we can discuss it, so we can learn about our kids, so we can see them, accept them, love them, teach them. We can't let things slide any more than in a manufacturing plant. The foreman or the inspector at the end of the thing being assembled, when it doesn't work, they wouldn't just go, oh, maybe it'll work when the customer turns it on. No. That company then is going to end up failing because the failures are going out. In your case, if you fail to pay attention to the background noise, you're going to send your child out to fail at life, and that's way worse than failing as a company. Mom says, so in addition to the family meeting, I had a personal meeting with Ada. I asked her what put her in that mood. Now I'm going to give you some more information to Mom. Rarely does any child know the answer to questions about why they did something. Think about all the times you said to a child, why are you doing that? And they look at you like, and they shrug their shoulders like, I don't know. What they're doing is looking for the answer that will please you. Why is that the case that they don't know? Because almost invariably, they really don't know why they're doing things, especially if the thing is wrong. Because most of their behaviors that we would point out, usually the wrong ones, are just reactions to pain. They're just reflexes, and the child really doesn't know the cause of the underlying baseline, always present pain that really leads to the reflex. They only see the event that happens right in front of them that seems to be the cause. And even to them, that single event doesn't usually seem to explain their unpleasant mood for days. We've illustrated that principle many times. Like when we say if somebody's sunburned as a result of laying out in the sun, and you just, as you pass by them, just touch their shoulder and they jump through the ceiling. It would be natural for them to say that we hurt them by touching them, but really we didn't. We didn't hurt them. We just bumped them. Their pain came from their decision to lie out in the sun far too long without sunscreen. Just as with our children, their real pain comes from a lifetime of not feeling loved, not from any particular event. But just because a child doesn't know the answer to a question doesn't mean that the question won't be useful still. Their answer can then give us an opportunity to teach them something they'll use for life. So Mom says, I pressed the why question a little more, and it turns out that the coach of the volleyball team put her on the practice team that stinks, so the play was sloppy and she didn't get a good chance to learn how to be a better player. Then the coach didn't put her on the traveling team for a game with another school that weekend, which made her feel like a loser. She went on and on about that for a while, like really being victim-y about it. Then there's another girl at school who never does her work in math class, never listens in class, and is always leaning over and bothering Ada during class and even wanting to cheat. Then she's behind writing an essay for English. Her sister used her hairspray that morning. Ada's telling all this to Mom. Then at dinner tonight, somebody took a bite out of a piece of toast she'd made. She was just spewing victimhood all over the place. So let's look at all these things leading up to a bad mood. But all those things still don't explain the real problem. And you can't let these victim rants go on for too long. In the beginning, they can go on forever. Some people can complain without taking in a breath for hours. I've watched them do it. She needs your help. Her endless complaining is screaming for help, even though she doesn't realize she's screaming for help. You need to begin interrupting her victimhood and her moods sooner and sooner. And within a short period of time, if you do this consistently, usually within a week or so, you need to be interrupting her within 30 seconds of her complaining, eventually within 3 words, because it has to stop. Complaining makes everybody less happy. Now, why the necessity of interrupting? Some people would argue that interrupting is not listening to the daughter. But you see, when she's complaining, you're not really listening to her. You're listening to her describe her reflex to her pain. And her pain and she and her pain are not the same thing. That's not listening to who she really is. Every second that she complains and you just listen, she does not feel understood, seen, and loved? No. She feels like your silence is you agreeing with her. Really. I'm going to say it again. When you're silent, supposedly listening, she hears it as you agreeing with her whining. In the law, that's a principle that is expressed in Latin. I don't speak Latin, but this is as close as I can get. Qui tacit consentira videtur. He who is silent is seen as giving consent. If you say nothing when somebody is plotting to break the law, for example, the case can be made that you agreed and can be indicted as a co-conspirator. It applies to agreement with what is being said by another person, whether it's a crime or a contract and other things. Silence implies agreement. Your daughter sees your silence as agreement, and this enables her victimhood. It rewards her manipulation with victimhood, what she perceives as you being a victim with her. And such listening can't feel like unconditional love, because anything you give her in that kind of interchange will feel like a result of her manipulation, and therefore disqualified as unconditional love. So being rewarded for her manipulation, which you're doing unwittingly, she manipulates even more, with more victimhood. It's a nasty, very distasteful cycle. So what can we do? You can remind her that it is so easy to fall into victimhood because injustices are everywhere. People are in pain everywhere, and their protective choices, other people, will naturally be selfish. When we're protecting ourselves, by definition, who are we thinking about? Ourselves. And in the process, other people's selfish choices will negatively affect us because they're not thinking about us. Their selfish and protective choices will inconvenience us and devalue us. There are so many opportunities for us to feel like people are doing something to us. And you can say this to her, but they're not. They're not doing something to us. They're way too focused on themselves. That's the only person they're thinking of. They're thinking about them, not you. When they're in pain, they're the center of the universe, and they don't even notice you unless you somehow inconvenience them. You inconvenience that tiny little world that they've created in their head. The only thing any of us can really do, you, your children, me, that makes any sense at all, is to focus on how we can choose wisely, how we can feel loved and be loving and responsible, but not focusing on the behavior of other people, which just doesn't work. Mom continued. Since she's not going to the volleyball game this weekend, she asked if she could go to a friend's birthday party on Sunday. Several months ago, I had told her that no, parties were pretty much canceled. We even canceled her own birthday party until she's caught up with her life. Things like her English essay, practicing volleyball so she gets better and can play on the traveling team instead of complaining, or quit the team. It's up to her what she wants to do, but complaining is not a reasonable choice until she participates more in family meetings and loses her nearly constant attitude. So we're going to cancel all parties until she can do that, because learning life is way more important than going to a party. And then I asked her, just for kicks, this is Mom still talking, if she was caught up with every assignment that she presently has at school. And she looked at the floor, you already know the answer, don't we? And said, no. Good for you that you asked her this. So she had to say it herself that she wasn't keeping up. And notice, you said she reluctantly said no. She reluctantly admitted that she was behind in school. We must stop our children every time they have these attitudes. Testy, angry, snarky, reluctant, like you just said. That last one especially important, reluctance. because reluctance means that she's not willing to learn how to live. She's not learning the course of life. She's fighting the truth. That's what reluctance means. And nobody learns while they're fighting. And then the day will come when she's gone from home and it's too late to teach her. Now, the world will teach her these principles, but the world is without mercy. The world is far more cruel than she can possibly imagine. The world will impose its consequences with a hammer and walk away with no regret. Way harsher than missing a friend's party. Oh yes, children will cry and go, how could you do this to me, not go to the party? And then they grow up to whine and cry like that about everything else for the rest of their lives. We don't do them a favor by giving in. Teach her now, and the younger the better. Mom said she had not done her daily house chore before the family meeting, dishes. She said, I took myself out of the picture because I was getting upset with people. This is very clever. So she actually tried to look magnanimous, like she was caring about other people as she just simply ran away from doing the dishes. I didn't want to negatively affect other people because I was being a snippy little witch. Absurd, but clever. Mom said I told her that she would need to make breakfast tomorrow for the family as a consequence of not doing her chore on time today, and for making the excuse about leaving her chore because she was upset. She asked if she should have stayed and done the dishes. That's a step, even though she was in a bad mood. And I said, yes, she needs to learn to deal with her mood and finish the job without being snippy at other people. I said, this is how life works. As an adult, she can't fail to show up for work because she doesn't get along with a coworker or because she's feeling snippy. And then Mom asked me, was that right, what I told her? Oh, it was better than right. It's cool and brave. And you taught her how her behavior now, just not doing the dishes, can lead to a series of events that will cripple her later in life. You taught her the school of life. Congratulations. You taught her that you can't just walk out when things are hard. You can't walk out of work. You can't walk out of the house because this is going to happen later on. You have a crying child who needs you and you just go, I'm out of here. Or as some mothers have done, you just put the child in a dumpster and walk away. Sometimes you have to simply buck up and be responsible. Sometimes that's difficult, for sure. And that is when we become stronger. And now you're going to teach her, as we talked about all through this discussion, that she's not a victim in life and that other people don't cause her mood. So, way to go, kid. This is being a mother. And to everyone, as usual, as this mother learns the important lessons in becoming a great parent, so do we all.